Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Legacy of You from Garphill Games. Legacy of You is a solo campaign game in which players are trying to, well, not players, unless you refer to the collective whole as players, so let's go with that. Players are trying to ultimately win the game, trying to win the game 7 times before they lose the game 7 times. You're going to have different decks representing your win and loss, with an ultimate win or loss that you'll draw at the very end, determining how well you did, all of those things. But the general idea is this is a campaign game in which you're trying to win each individual episode as much as possible. To do that, you have to basically try to build the canal and make sure you are not overrun by barbarians along the way. You're going to have the barbarians up here, and just to be clear, these are the various workers you can hire. These are the barbarians, which are slowly taking over the worker track bit by bit and eventually overwhelming you. Meanwhile, you also have the flood over here, which is slowly trying to move. If it ever hits a unbuilt card, you lose. Or if it goes off the edge of the board before you build the last thing, then you lose. Well, that's a little complicated because technically building the last thing makes you win, but sometimes there are other win conditions you have to be mindful of, so things to mindful there. And then also, if you ever run out of cards in your deck, you will also lose. Past that, how do you win? Well, you actually have to build the canals. Each of these canal sections require resources, which you can see on them right now. So you can see 2 workers, 2 white workers, and 2 cowries over here. And that progressively gets more expensive as you go along. But they basically are the costs to build the canals, and you have to build all of them before any of the bad things happen. This is a resource management game. The game is going to have you gaining income every single round. You're going to use that income to build canal sections. The canal sections will open up spots where you can build more buildings, generating more income, but the building canal sections will also have more barbarians invading each turn, and so you're effectively trying to have your economy power up and get better and more efficient, better than the barbarians that are invading, before you run out of time and you lose the game. That puzzle is where the crux of Legacy U lies, because a bunch of things are all intertwining here, but every single round you're going to go ahead and collect your income, which is going to start with 4 cards, plus a few other things over here. So we start with 4 cards, a white worker, a cowrie shell, and you're going to go ahead and have these done over here. Here we go. Boom. There we go. Awesome. Got some stuff over here. But as you uncover buildings, you'll get more income. If you build this building, you'll get an additional white worker every round. To build that building, though, you're going to need a white worker, a brick, and a wood. When you do so, you can then go ahead and place this here. You'll gain a one-time benefit of an extra provisions, which you can add to your supply. And next round, you have an additional income of a white worker. That'll be true for these buildings as well, which will give you income of provisions or any colored worker. These buildings, which will let you treat white workers as workers of a different color, giving you a lot of flexibility. And then if you build that one, well, all of these can be treated as each other. The more the purple buildings you build, the more flexibility you have, but not necessarily more, although you will get more cowrie shells. For each purple building you've built, you get a cowrie shell. Meanwhile, you can also slot cards under your board over here. So cards can be used in a few ways, but one of the ways is you can slot them under your board to be able to get additional income. Look at that. Now I have a yellow worker coming in each round. But you can only do so where you've built cards. So over here, this camp needs to be built first. I need to build this building first before I can slot another card. The problem is, to build this building, not only do I need the resources shown, but I also need to clear another card over here in order to unlock a building spot where I can then place that building. The problem with that, then we clear this card, we'll get a provisions in this case, we'll put this underneath the board over here, we now have additional income, we also have additional worker placement spot. This is where you can place workers to get things and get those workers back at the end of the round. So that seems like a fun little engine, except for one small thing. As you build more canals, you're going to go ahead and uncover more card draws. These symbols represent how many barbarians are entering the board every single round, meaning every few cards you have more and more barbarians entering the round, and those barbarians are a beast to keep up with as far as the economy of the game. And so you have to really be on top of yourself to ensure that you take care of all those barbarians as they are happening. Past that, you're going to have cards over here. The cards have a few things going on. They have already, we talked about the income part down below. They're also going to have the income they give, the benefit they give if they discard them. If I discard this worker on my turn, I will get a white worker. But then past that, if I discard it permanently, I mean if I get rid of it from my deck entirely, I'll also get the red section. And then finally the food section over here will come into play doing different cards. Those are going to go to the campaign element of the game. Not really spoilers, that's just rules so far. But then past that, that's generally what's happening in the game. There's a few other things going on. There's going to be a giant story deck over here that you're going to be looking through as the book tells you to. Basically, throughout the course of the game, as you build huts, as you build canals, as you defeat people, as you earn people, you'll be referencing different numbers in this book. These will give you story sections, but also small rules adjustments and new endgame conditions. If you win or lose the game, you'll have modifications to the gameplay. I mean, if I win the game, something bad will get added to the game that makes it harder to win next time. And if I lose the game, something good will be added to the game that makes it easier to win next time. That back and forth is always going to be present as you play Legacy of You. Ultimately, your goal is to continue this challenge, trying to be mindful of recruiting. I didn't talk about this part, but you also can recruit people. Over here, as you're trying to gather these various workers, you can pay to recruit them. You have to pay provisions if it's under the spot, and then take those workers. So the first worker is going to be free, but then after that, you can pay provisions to recruit them, such that when you shuffle your discard pile over here, you're going to have more workers in your pile, but that's also how the flood advances. So the larger you can build your pile, the slower the flood is advancing, which gives you time to actually build sections before those happen. Meanwhile, the barbarians, you have to pay the workers on the side to defeat them. You're going to get the reward if you do, but then also you have to pay provisions as well based on the spot they're in. The further the barbarians are away from the settlement, the more food and provisions it takes to make sure you can defeat them along the way. And then they're going to, if you don't defeat them, they either destroy a card in your pile, or you can pay a sort of ransom cost along the way to stop them doing so. That's basically Legacy of You. Few small other details as far as exact rules, things that we didn't get into, but the general idea is you're going to earn income. You're going to use that income to figure out how you want to spend those workers, those resources, to ideally build canal sections, build buildings on those canal sections, improve your tableau as far as the various more income you get, sliding cards as you need, getting extra income, whatever it is, and trying to find the right pace where you can build up enough before you overwhelm yourself with too many bad things. If you get to the point where you are drawing 3 barbarian cards around, you will have a hard time winning at that point, so you need to be sure you are on the cusp of victory. And if you get to 4, you will lose unless you are able to properly keep up on everything. This is a juggling act of a game as you try to stay ahead of everything before it comes down crashing over your head, and then rinse and repeat across, well, anywhere between, I guess, 7 to 14 games, 7 to 13 games probably, as far as you finding your pattern and your win towards your drive, your path towards victory. Which brings us to the review, starting off with ease of play. The rulebook is pretty easy to go through. Not the most simple. This is a game that, some games, when you learn some games, you're able to rest on the foundation of other games that you've learned until now. If you're playing a worker placement game, you can build on the worker placement principles, and there's usually some degree of commonality, some overlap. This game, Legacy of You, is doing enough things uniquely that it has some foundational aspects for sure, but there's also a lot to go through. It's not overly complicated, it is well laid out, but it's certainly, it's a little bit to pick up just because of how different and unique it actually is as far as it goes. Game time generally clocks in at 45 to 60 minutes once you have it down. Your first games can be a little longer, especially as you're figuring out the pattern of the rhythms. I think subsequent games will be around 45 minutes. Earlier games will be 60 to 75 minutes, I would guess. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, there's a lot to enjoy about Legacy of You. The game sets up quickly, tears down quickly, gives you a campaign experience that is consumable. It's not 100 games long, it's between 7 to 13 games long. It gives you a solid resource management pool as well as the optimization around that. There is a clean engine at play here. You earn things, you spend things, you try to improve faster than the bad things are happening, and you have to find that middle ground. You have to find what that tipping point is to be on top of that puzzle, because it is a very competitive puzzle. Even as a solo experience, it's a very competitive puzzle as far as exactly what that tipping point is. Where do you want to continue earning? Where do you not need to start cashing in? You also can't just hold on to things forever because the flood is slowly advancing along the board over here. So you're trying to find that balance of staying ahead of the curve, and it is a very specific tipping point. Too early in the game and you're not able to keep up. You need to get more stuff. Too late in the game and the board's keeping up with you faster. You need to find that exact tipping point that works for you to have your engine moving faster than the game's engine is moving, so you can start working your way towards building up that resource pool to actually drive endgame successfully. It is a well-balanced game in terms of that knife's edge of finding where it lies, and it is a rewarding puzzle to try to figure out how to achieve your first wins. This is a game that, from what I've seen, most people are losing their first games of it, and it is rewarding to get in that first win, to have a degree of, okay, great, I finally figured out that balance, I got it in, I now know exactly how to play the game or to fine-tune it as you go through. The tableau building works, the enemies getting harder works, the drop of story mixed in, all of it works. It's just very cleanly designed and very rewarding to go through at times. Which brings us to the things I don't like, which is the primary thing I don't like in the game is twofold. First of all, is because of the nature of gaining things when you lose and losing things when you win, and finding that balance, the game, to a certain extent, runs on rails. To a certain extent. Now, make no mistake, I have not finished this game. I have, I think, 6 games under my belt so far. I have not finished the full experience as far as playing potentially 13 different games. And I don't think I will. To a certain extent, there is a puzzle here of trying to find out how to win the game. But because of the fact that you're gaining things when you lose, when you do finally win, is it really that you got better at the game? Is it? I mean, partially, yes, you are learning the strategies, but also it's that you're being given things that make your next game easier. And the same is true in reverse. If you then lose a game 3 doors down, is it because you didn't figure it out, or is it because the game's getting harder? The game adjusts to how well you're doing in a way that I find very hard to analyze well, because some systems I've seen do it in a way that is very rewarding. Pandemic Legacy is going to come to mind as a game system that gives you things when you win and gives you things when you lose in a way that I find that system rewarding, and I find the balance of it well, but I also find those things aren't hugely impactful. In Legacy of You, those things are fairly game-breaking in this experience, and I think part of the, I guess, balance or issue to me is that this game is so finely crafted in terms of the resource economic engine at play that even the smallest tipping point is a huge deal breaker as far as, did you actually get better, or did you just get the aid that you needed to finally make it over the hump? In games like Pandemic Legacy and other systems where there's more chaos, where there's more randomness, those small perks and boons don't feel as game-breaking. Precisely because of how well Legacy of You is designed and because of how well it's balanced, it does feel like when you do finally get victories, it may not have been because you earned them. It may have been because you got more stuff. And that makes the game experience to a certain extent feel like it's running on rails. As I win games, I know that the game is thrusting me headfirst towards a loss. And as I lose games, I know that the game is thrusting me headfirst towards a win. And you might argue, well, that's true, but across the course of the experience, did you win before you lost in those 7 games? I don't know if I care to get that far. I respect that, but I don't know if I care to get that far. I feel that Legacy of You is both an excellently crafted experience, but it does run on rails, and it's also repetitive in the gameplay loop. The puzzle that I'm engaging in, game out, game in, game out. The first few games were about trying to find that tipping point and that balance, but subsequent games no longer feel that way. It feels like I found that tipping point, and now it's just running the exact same mental cycle with just the modifications of whatever the game threw my way. So it runs on rails, and it's repetitive, while being finely crafted. As far as I can see others not liking, this is a very attrition-based approach in the game. Things are burning up what you're earning as you go through it. You're constantly trying to earn and then have things being taken away from you. If you want a game that just gives you nice fuzzy things, this is not that game. This is a game that gives with one hand and takes away with the other hand, and that general cycle, I like that cycle. My issue is the repetitiveness of it, but I like the cycle, but you may not like having a bunch of barbarians heading towards your camp, pillaging all the things you spend time earning. As far as final thoughts on Legacy of You, I'm torn on this one. Legacy of You is an interesting game that started on a high for me. This game started off and I was into it. I loved how well crafted the experience was. If you would have asked me after 2 games what I rated this, I would have told you a 4.5 out of 5. This was an excellent experience that was beautifully crafted. It was delightfully done. It was so well balanced. It was a rewarding engine. Even as I lost, it was a rewarding engine. And then multiple things started turning me away from the game one step at a time. Seeing the fact that nearly everyone was losing their first games. I'm not saying everyone, but nearly everyone seemed to be losing their first games. Kind of meant that to me, that first game no longer felt like a game I lost. It felt like a game you were going to lose, which makes the entire experience less fun. Why am I rushing towards trying to achieve victory if most people are going to lose anyway? And then when you achieve those cards that give you extra legs up, the reverse is true as well. That win doesn't feel quite as satisfying. I have now won several games of Legacy of You. I have lost several games of Legacy of You, and I no longer find the experience rewarding. I think it is well crafted, but it runs on rails to such a large extent for me personally, that for me it's gone from a 4.5 to a 3 out of 5. And I think that's a tricky balance. To me, it's a 3 out of 5. This game is a 3 out of 5, which for me, my rating scale means I don't feel the need. I'm happy to play this. If you want to play this, I'm happy to play it. But if I never play this game again, I won't miss it, which is the tricky part for me. It's still a good game. Even at a 3 out of 5, it's still good. But my desire to continue playing it puts this game at a 3 out of 5. My appreciation for the game design is significantly higher than a 3 out of 5, but there's too many issues in the way that for me, between the repetitiveness, between the running on rails, Legacy of You is a game that got worse and worse with every game that I played. It's not entirely true. The second game was arguably better than the first. I think the second game it was first game, second game, and then worse. I think this is a game that many people will love. Genuinely, I think this is a game that many will love. This game has high rankings on Board Game Geek. I also wonder how many of those rankings are based on 2 plays versus 15 plays. Well, not 15 plays, how many, 13 plays, 10 plays, 8 plays, I don't know. I wonder where the rankings lie on the curve of people who are changing or adjusting their ranking as they continue to dive into this experience. This may well be a game you'll love. For me, it's a game I started off loving, and because of the nature of what it does, I am 6 games in and no longer feel the need to play through it. 3 out of 5, but a conflicted 3 out of 5. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Hadrian's Wall. If you're looking for a game that gives you the same economic puzzle that Legacy of You does, in both a multiplayer as well as a solo campaign game experience, Hadrian's Wall gives me that same resource crafting puzzle that is amazingly well designed, but without some of the issues that kind of make Legacy of You a less and less satisfying experience as I play through it. And then also, very similar in feeling, yet different at the same time, Encyclopedia, both as a multiplayer game and as a solo experience, has a lot of that resource conversion engine going on that I really appreciated in Legacy of You. And then finally, I'll say that if you want to see me playing through this game, I have a bunch of film playthroughs over on this channel, as well as some over on Camp Co-op, so you can check out my experience with the game as I've enjoyed it, appreciated it, and slowly winded down in how much I like the game. In any case, then until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.